Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Bob and Friends. I'm Bob Berg here with two of my great friends, former star sales professionals and entrepreneurs, Jeff West and Kim Angeli. And in just a moment, we'll introduce a wonderful friend of mine, really a man who is not only considered to be a mentor by, I think, everyone who knows him, but certainly that includes me because he is just a wonderful, wonderful human being. I can't wait till you have a chance to meet him. So, Jeff West was a former top producing sales professional and mega successful sales manager slash leader for a well-known Fortune 500 company. He's now a speaker who speaks at all sorts of sales conventions, conferences all over the world, as well as a award-winning author. He's written and or co-authored, I think, 3 books now and has a total of 6 awards. So he's doing pretty well in that department. He has another book coming out with the great Bill Cates in the fall. And wow, it's another powerful one. And I suspect there's going to be more awards for that one as well. He also was the creator of a concept called Fusion Points. And Fusion Points is really I call it a game-changing method of prospecting because it allows you to connect on a human-to-human level with people in such a way that you're able to attain appointments with people where others might not be able to, and have great sales conversations that result in more sales. So it's just a wonderful methodology. Now, Kim Angeli, who I call her a walking fusion point, but you'd have to first know what fusion points are to know why that's such a compliment. But let's just say you can't meet Kim Angeli and not just love Kim Angeli. She was an award-winning salesperson. She was a $65 million producer in the tech industry before going on to form her own insurance company. Had it for many years, a very successful business, sold that out. And now she, again, goes around the country speaking and coaching and sharing with people how to grow with gratitude and really take their retention and referrals to a whole new level. So I want to first hold up one of Jeff's books, by the way, The Unexpected Tour Guide. Wonderful, wonderful book. Again, just one of them. And Kim's book is My Daily Gratitude Journal. Go to, if you will, Jeff West, jeffcwest.com, and subscribe to everything Jeff. And go to kimangeli.com. That's angel with an I, kimangeli.com, and subscribe to everything she has. And you're going to really enjoy their materials. So today, we're going to talk. I'm just going to go to this. We've all heard the expression OPM, right? Other people's money. And it's a way of leverage, economic leverage, I guess you could call it, when it comes to business. But you know what's even more valuable than other people's money? OPM is OPM other people's mistakes. Because why learn from our own mistakes? It's valuable to do when we do learn from them, but why not kind of cut the learning curve even more by learning from the mistakes of others? Now, that's going to be part of our theme today, other people's mistakes. And the person sharing it wrote a wonderful article on this, which gave me the idea. And he's going to share some of his own mistakes as well as others. But he's a guy who maybe he's made some mistakes, but he's had a very, very successful career. He's not only one of the most successful people I know financially, but in all the other ways that count, including relationships. He has just a wonderful, wonderful family. And I've had the opportunity to speak at several of his conferences, and this man is absolutely loved. He is the mentor to the multitudes. I consider him to be like Pindar in the Go-Giver. So you're really going to enjoy him. And we're going to bring him on in a moment. Now, so again, the theme today is going to be, mistakes, right? It fascinates me, Jeff and Kim, because I've made so many of them personally and in business. But, you guys always look good and smell good. And I'm just wondering, have you all made any mistakes, or has it all pretty much been straight up successes for you?
Ladies first.
Jeff warned me it would be ladies first. What a gentleman. What a Southern gentleman in Georgia. So I make mistakes every day, right? I believe mistakes are learning, they're lessons. A big one I've made in my past related to IT and marketing is I got away from my own like growing relationships. And I bought into the SEO, lead magnet, shiny object, and I threw a couple of Benjamin Franklin's out the window. And then I thought, what am I doing here? I don't even teach this. I don't even teach chasing leads. Why am I chasing them? So really, that's one of my big ones in the last couple of years. But I am on a mission to learn every day. And I think mistakes and failures are learning. I think that's where we learn. We don't learn when things are sugar plums and fairies. We learn when the fairies and the sugar plums aren't showing up. We're like, what's happening here? So there we go. Well, you're on deck now, Jeff.
Well, you know, I've made a lot of decisions in business that didn't turn out the way I wanted them to. And some of them had some pretty significant consequences, some of them not so much, but I kind of looked at all of it. I guess I learned early on to look at all of that as just my learning process. But the biggest business mistake that I made when I retired from the insurance industry in 2014 and published my first book, that one Bob held up, The Unexpected Tour Guide, it got well received, counting event sales. I sold a few thousand copies and it won an Axiom Award. So, and then I panicked and I didn't write another book, or I didn't publish another book for 8 years, because I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be a fluke. I can't be that good that this worked out that well. But about 3 years ago, that all changed for me, because I began to develop a friendship and then mentorship with John David Mann, of course, Bob's co-author on the Go Giver series. And that I've been taking his writing course for the last 2 years, and that actually has elevated my writing, elevated my confidence to such a level that when I look at my books now versus any time previous, it just seems to grow. Like with Lisa Wilbur and the lady with the blue hair, and then Bob, when you and I did Streetwise, and then with this latest one with Bill. My biggest business mistake is back in 2014, when The Unexpected Tour Guide came out, was not asking my friend and say, hey, brother Bob, you mind introducing me to that John David Mann guy that you're friends with? That was my biggest one, because it cost me 8 years. So
wow. Okay, good news. You're making up for it now.
True. Life is grand.
Absolutely. So our special guest today, Arlen Sorensen, he describes himself as a simple Iowa farm boy who fell in love with technology and founded a number of companies, including an IT services company, an ag tech company, and a peer group organization that serves technology business owners and executive leaders around the world. He says the culture guide for the peer group was from the principles from the Go Giver. And, John and I are deeply honored that he says that, but I guarantee you he was living and operating from those principles long before he read the book. But that's just how humble Arlen is. And if you read John's and my second book in the series, Go Givers Sell More, then you read a part of Arlen's story and how the peer group that he began truly took some members' businesses to an entirely new level of success, and did so in such a very human way. While he's officially less active than he was for many years, reading his daily newsletter, Thoughts from the Farm, which we'll discuss a little later, you just never know it. And he actually just returned recently from a peer group event in his family's mother country of Denmark, where he was speaking, counseling, and mentoring as always. Today, we'll focus on mistakes that business owners make and how to learn from them rather than making them ourselves. And this is based on a wonderful article in Arlen's daily email. Actually, I printed it out, and we'll have the link for you in just a little bit. And we're only going to have time, obviously, to go through a few of them. But in true Arlen Sorensen style, he put the full article into a PDF that you can receive by visiting the link in the chat. So a few links to visit, which will also be shared on screen during this visit. There's his daily email. It's Thoughts from the Farm, and we're going to talk more about that later. His PDF article, Considerations for Scaling and Transferring a Service, Transitioning a Service Business, his IT Nations peer group, his IT Nations Grow event, and his thoughts on Scripture. This guy, for somebody who isn't as active as he used to be, he certainly is active. Hi, Arlen. Welcome. It's so great to see you. It's an absolute honor to have you with us.
Oh, it's a joy to be with you, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity.
So, as mentioned, John and I had mentioned part of your story in Go Give or Sell More, but not nearly enough of it. So, would you share with us some of the Arlen Sorensen story, and then discuss peer groups and your ideas behind them and how they work? Because you really took this to an absolutely exceptional level.
Sure. I went to Iowa State and got a degree in farm op.
Oh, did we lose? Arlen is on the road. He is in a hotel today, so I think we've lost him temporarily, but he'll probably be back on. And this happens on live TV sometimes, but it looks like he's coming back on, so I'm sure we'll have him. So yeah, looks like he's back on. Our producer Joseph just brought him up. That's okay, Arlen. Hey, it's technology. Isn't that what you talk about sometimes?
I talk about it a lot, yes, and certainly being in a hotel room, you're at their mercy. That's for sure. But yeah, I went to Iowa State, got a degree in farm operation, and returned to the family farm in southwest Iowa with the intent of farming with my dad and brother as my career. Back in the early 80s, I bought an Apple II Plus computer and fell in love with technology and decided to pursue that alongside the farming. And from that, we started an IT company and an ag tech company.
This might be one of those growth experiences that we all.
Authentic is much better than perfect, so this is okay.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
So it's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
I've heard you talk about the fact that in your mind, Arlen is a lot like Pindar and the Go Giver. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because again, I've had the honor of speaking at several of his conferences over the last, I'd say 20 years or so. And this guy is just looked at and seen, it's like it must have been watching Joe DiMaggio, going through the Yankee clubhouse. Right. But he is so approachable and so wonderful. And anybody who wants to speak to Arlen can speak to Arlen. And it's like, you're talking to your best friend. So you're walking around with him. And if you didn't know who he was, you'd think, oh, this guy's just the, average nice guy and everything. And then you look at people looking at him and approaching him. And, when people know how good of friends Arlen and I are, I can't tell you how many people have told me Arlen Sorensen stories, that changed the game for them in business and in life. But you'd never hear that from Arlen. You only hear that from, that's why he's so much like Pindar. You'd never hear that from Pindar, but you'd hear it from everybody who Pindar. So we've got our Arlen back. Arlen, I'm sorry about this, that this is happening, but it's just one of,
It's IT, man. That's just the way it works, or doesn't work some days. We'll try it on my phone here and see if that doesn't allow us to stay connected. But
sure.
Anyway, I fell in love with an Apple II Plus computer and decided to start an IT business. And we were going along, growing very slowly because of some of the mistakes we'll talk about today. But in the late 90s, I got all excited about this thing called Y2K, which probably some folks don't even know existed. But I went and hired a number of people at the end of 99 to be geared up and ready for the greatest IT event in the history of mankind. And it completely missed Iowa. And there was no work for my engineering team. And so I had hired 12 additional people at the end of the year. And by April of 2000, we were bleeding cash badly and needed to figure out what was going on. And one of my leadership team members said we should find some other people to talk to and just see if we're completely missing the boat or what's going on. And so we did. We called 3 other companies in Iowa and said, can we meet and just compare notes on what's happening? And they agreed. And So we got together, learned that there was no Y2K anything going on anywhere, and that gave me the confidence to do what I only had to do once in my career, which was downsize my business. And so we downsized as a result of that meeting. But because of the things we learned, we decided to keep getting together. And so we started a peer group, and my intent was only to have one group just so we could learn from others. But over the course of time, people heard about it and they wanted to be part of the peer group. And I kept saying, no, it's full. We'll put you on a waiting list. And then we had 30 companies on a waiting list. And all of a sudden, we had a peer group business that started to grow and take off. And today we're serving over 650 companies globally, and just really focused on helping people learn how to succeed and not make all the mistakes that I made along the journey.
What was it like, Arlen, when you first started hearing feedback from people? Because one of my favorite stories is during a downturn when there were a couple of companies that were really just about to go out of business, and a couple of other people came that were part of the peer group, came down, counseled them, got together, and right away it gave them hope that, the ones that were thinking about going out of business to stay. But then, 6 months later, they're thriving and they have their best quarter ever, and it helped the other two that had gone down there. When did you first start to see that there were some real significant results?
Yeah, I mean, it happens right away when people get in a room and are transparent and share their challenges. You know, impact happens very, very quickly. And when we go on site and actually sit with business owners and their employees and understand what's going on, what I've learned in my own life is sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. The things that need to happen are not necessarily all that difficult, but you just can't see them because of kind of your preconceived ideas and notions. So the impact can be very quick, and the key is just transparency. You got to be open and willing to let people understand that you don't have it all figured out, and be willing to receive and accept help. That's why the law of receptivity is so important, and we preach that in the peer groups. Sometimes people join the peer groups thinking they've got it all figured out, and they're not willing to listen or receive anything. But the problem with that is, they rob the giver, number one. But secondly, they don't have it all figured out. None of us do. And we can all learn if we just open our ears and be willing to accept what's given to us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look at some of the business mistakes that you feature in your fantastic article. And again, we'll make sure that's in the post and I in the chat. And I would suggest really print this out as I did, staple it together. And what he does is he talks about these mistakes and then just gives like a 1 or 2 paragraph brief but really powerful explanation with the solutions and so forth. It's really cool. So we're just gonna take a few of them. Hard work does not necessarily equal business value. Can you share that one?
Absolutely, Bob. This is the thing that keeps me awake at night, is that business owners pour their life into their companies. They sacrifice all kinds of family and personal things to grow a company, but they don't recognize the reality that nobody buys hard work. We can generate hard work on our own. People buy companies that have got value and that are generating consistent, regular profitability, because that's how you pay for it. But so often I talk to owners that have been doing it for 25 or 30 years, and the story's almost always the same. The business is taking care of us. It's fed my family. It's clothed them. We've gotten them through, our kids through school. But at the end of the day, when they're ready to transition and want to move on, they haven't created value in their organization. They've just had a cash flow that's enabled them to have a lifestyle that they wanted to have. And people don't buy that. They buy companies that have got value. So you can't equate hard work with business value. hard work is what helps make a business successful, but it is not what creates value. What creates value is running a company that's generating profit on a consistent, predictable basis that somebody else will be able to step in and receive that value as well.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things where it's really a matter of living in reality, because we might like to think our hard work is going to have some business value, and yet that other person's value, as you said, just they're not counting our hours that we put into it. So
Absolutely.
Right.
yeah. Okay, another one, and this is one of those, and I'm telling you, it seems obvious, and yet we see this mistake being made everywhere, and that is, no matter what widget or service we sell, we are ultimately in the people business. Now, if you say this to 100 business people, they'll all say, "Of course, absolutely." Yet, how often is that not where the focus actually is?
It's absolutely the case, that people lose sight of the fact that it's not about the product or service that we sell. Sure, that's got to be good. It's got to work, all those things. But at the end of the day, it's about people. It's about the relationships we build. It's about how it impacts people's lives. They're looking for the outcomes. They're not looking at how pretty our widget is or how creative our services are. They want to know what's the impact going to be and how's it going to impact their life and their companies. And so it's about people. That's what we're in business for, and it's what matters to those that are going to do business with us.
Kim and Jeff, as you were in your businesses, and Kim, you both sold business to consumer and business to business. Jeff, you're well, both as well. When you think about it, first it was business to business, but then to the consumer. Of course, it's always H to H, human to human. But did either both of you find that the people who worked with you, did they have a hard time keeping that in mind, that it's all about the person? Did that come naturally to them? How often did you have to really make that point in your sales meetings?
Ladies first.
I'm providing value. I'm like,
Right. Well, when I was running my insurance agency, not from a state of gratitude, until I dusted off that book from Jack Canfield, I was just, didn't realize that maybe my culture was a reflection of the leader, me, which was, I was a little ungrateful. But when I started intentionally being grateful for my employees and teaching them how to be grateful for our customers, which pours over into the experience, it really allowed me to sell my business for a higher profit, because I got them all. And those people, I sold my agency in 2016. And those same team members are there because I changed the culture. Because, I've had some bad hires. I won't say their name because of HIPAA. But I've had some really bad hires in my insurance agency. But it was really, now that I know, a reflection of my bad leadership. And so once I shifted myself into a more state of gratitude, then it really shifted my business. And that's what I tell business owners. They're like, "Oh, I can't wait to send grateful baskets to my clients." And I'm like, hold the phone, people. When was the last time you did a thank you note and like a celebration for the people that give you 40 hours a week of their life to build your dream? Right. And they're like, oh, those people. Yeah, the ones that work for you so you can go on vacation. And they're like, oh, so we're going to do that first. We're going to do gratitude first internally. And that's what I wasn't doing. I mean, I know it's hard for you to imagine, Bob and Jeff, because you see the grateful version of Kim, but there's a version of Kim who would just go throw up on you about how you weren't doing your job well. And so I shifted that, and my entire organization shifted.
Okay, I love it. Jeff?
In my case, in the insurance industry, with what I was doing as a state manager, especially, excuse me, there was a lesson that I had learned from you, Bob, in endless referrals back in 2000, 2001, 2002, something like that. And it was how to genuinely focus on the other person, not just by thinking, okay, I'm going to help them, but by how I communicated with them. Mm-hmm. And because it had everything to do with how their life changed. And now, as you know, when I'm teaching at the level I'm doing now and the Fusion Points, I talk about Their value proposition has nothing to do with your product, your service, your company. Their value proposition is 100% how their life gets better if they have a relationship with you. So it's
Right.
their value from your proposition is what it amounts to. So as I was trying to teach that concept, not as eloquently spoken as that, but when I tried to teach that concept as the state manager, it was new for a lot of people because they'd had such traditional sales training. But once those that got it, once they really understood that, then they began to run with it, and it gave us a lot of good years.
Okay, wonderful. I want to move now to a mistake that Arlen, you said you made, and that was undercapitalizing your business. That's a big one for I think most of us have probably been through that one, and that's a hard lesson to learn. But boy, does it need to be learned.
There's no question about it. A lot of service businesses in particular doesn't appear you need a lot of cash to start a business. You can just get out there and get to work and hopefully make more money than you need to continue to grow. But the number one reason companies fail is they run out of money. And the reality is that success can be your worst enemy if you don't have enough money, because you can grow yourself into a position where you cannot continue to operate the business. So, in my case, I started the IT business as a hobby alongside my farming business, and so I didn't really capitalize it at all. I just thought, I'll rob Peter to pay Paul if I need to, and keep things going. But that was short-sighted, and especially as we began to grow, we got into a financial bind around that same Y2K period. It's kind of funny how those mistakes can sometimes grow together and really become big mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was paying people with money I didn't have yet, because we hadn't gotten any business. So, my advice to business owners as they're starting out is just make sure you've got at least a source of capital. You don't necessarily have to have it in the bank, but have a relationship with a lender. One of the big lessons I learned was banks only want to loan money to people that actually show they're making money. And,
True.
as a
So true.
farmer, the number one thing farmers are really good at is getting to zero at the end of the year. They manage their tax returns so that they're paying as little tax as possible, and that's the way I ran my IT company, which was really not a great solution when we got to the point where we wanted to do some acquisitions. And I went to the bank and I asked for a loan, and I'll never forget what my lender said. He said, we only loan people the money we think they'll pay us back. And when I look at your tax returns for the last 5 years, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. And I said, oh, that's all intentional. Forget what the tax returns say. There's no problem with me paying you back. He said, well, prove it to me. Let's see you make money this next year, and then we can talk about maybe giving you a loan to acquire some more companies. Cash is king, and you've got to have access to it. It's great if you've got it in your own bank account, but at least have a relationship where you're not undercapitalized and constantly scrambling to try to come up with the money you need to run the business.
Yeah. And now I think you sit on some of those bank boards. Do you sit on the same board as that bank that turned you down for the loan, or is that another one? I remember reading this in your newsletter.
Actually, I do sit on that same bank board. Yeah, and it's a different set of lenders today, but still the same philosophy. If you can't prove you can pay it back, they're pretty, and I'm all for it. You're pretty restrictive on how much you're going to give out.
Yeah. Tell us your thoughts on having business operating systems in place, because you talk about that as being a mistake that many make, and whether it's Vern Harnish's Gazelle or gosh, what's the one I'm thinking of?
EOS.
Gino Wickman's EOS, which is a favorite one. So important, aren't they?
They really are, Bob. The people are ask me all the time, when you look at people in your peer group, we have deep financial benchmarking information on all of our peer group members. And like all things in life, about 20% really excel and kind of leave the rest of the companies behind them. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between that top 20% and the rest? And the reality is, if I had to pick one thing, it would be they have a plan and they have a system for how they're going to execute that plan. We use Stratop in our organizations, which is the Patterson Center's version of a business operating system. But no, it doesn't matter which tool you use, as long as you have one and you use it. And that's the value of these business operating platforms, is they provide the discipline you need to actually execute what your plans are. It's one thing to have a plan. A lot of companies create strategic plans and operating plans, and then they put them in a notebook and put them on the shelf and come back at the end of the year and say, "Oh, we didn't really do any of this stuff." That doesn't help much.
Yeah.
You've got to have a system that weekly keeps you engaged with the plan, so you know how you're progressing. You've got to have reporting that tells you how you're doing on key metrics. And these operating systems are really the key to helping most companies get to where they want to go. If it's left to an individual's, whim, they won't have the meetings. They won't necessarily do the things that need to be done. They won't do the quarterly reviews. And you need a system to keep you on track and make sure you're on target.
Yeah, Jeff and Kim, I saw you both nodding when he was talking about that.
Well, I agree. I just actually spoke with a prospect last week. I work with some solo service providers, smaller businesses, and I come from corporate America, and I, had my own operating systems. And I said, well, where's your data? Because I believe data is king. I said that in 1999 in front of millions of Sprint reps. And he's like, oh, it's on my phone. I was like, you can't sell them, right? Your contacts on your phone? Like, where do you have this data? And I said, because the day that you want to start an exit plan for your business is the day that you started it. So, and he's like, oh, so I said, you walking around with the contacts in your phone is probably not helping you. And so they don't realize they don't have any, it's the value of what do they have. And I run into that a lot. My husband's in private equity. He runs into it at a bigger level. And I'm like, how do these companies get to 70 million a year with no processes in place? He's like, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And, but I do work on this. I like to work with the smaller solopreneurs, and because they just don't know. And I'm on a mission that small businesses run this country, and they need a guide. And because one day they're going to want to sell, and they don't want to sell like my father did. He didn't have to sell because he had me. He manifested me into his own agency. He got sick in 2010. And if I had not been there to save the company, he would have sold it as a fire sale for pennies on the dollar. And people just don't realize I cleaned it up and made it profitable. And it would have been a really desperate situation. And that's where a lot of small business owners are.
Wow. Jeff?
In the insurance industry, every salesperson I had, hundreds and hundreds of them, they were all independent contractors, and it was a lot like herding cats. So from the top of the organization down, from me down, we would focus on a cadence where we drove certain metrics, drove activity, and we monitored those activities. And even the brand new district managers all the way up to the veterans, I knew there, if we could watch the activity, if we could drive that activity and do certain things, that system would help them become successful. And that's the same thing I'll teach small businesses now, because especially that entrepreneur who's grown a business because they've been the magic, and then now they need to hire a sales team and they have no clue how to do it. That's one of the first things that I'll discuss with them.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges for service businesses in the IT space, for sure, Jeff, is the transition from founder-led sales to some kind of hired sales resources is a
Right.
painful process. And what I see over and over is they'll find this person they hope to be a unicorn, which is somebody that not only can sell but can market their own stuff, find their own leads, write their own marketing material, and all that. And I've seen very few of those in my career. Uh, but 90 days later, they're firing this poor person that had no chance for success, and they're
Right.
hiring the next one that they'll fire 90 days later. And typically, after a year or two, they finally realize that, hey, maybe I'm the problem here. It's not these salespeople that I'm hiring; it's me, because I haven't set them up for success.
Right. And to get that sales model developed and that prospecting model developed and make all the pieces work, that's the key for a small business, just like you just said.
So no conversation with Arlen Sorensen's ever complete if you don't talk about faith, because he is a very faith-filled human being. And Arlen, you have said you cannot separate faith from the workplace and live the life, still live the life you were meant to live, and it can't be checked at the door. And this is one of the things where you in your in your email that you send out every day, thoughts from the farm. But tell us about that, because that's such a huge part of your life, your faith. And I mean, there's people from all faiths and religions that are part of his peer group, and even on this call, we've got, well, I'd say Jews and Christians, but it's Jew and Christians because the three of you are. But but that's one of the things I love most about America, right? But so tell us how your faith, Arlen, really works into your business. Because you've got such a wonderful family, and just how does faith work into your business and just kind of envelop it?
Yeah, so this is a lesson I really had to learn the hard way. Back in the '90s, when we were starting to have some success with the company, I bought into this whole concept that you can't have faith and work. Can't bring faith to work. It's got to be separated. And so, I decided I would check my faith at the door when I went to work, and then pick it up when I left. And we'd try to have two kinds of lifestyles, and that just doesn't work. It created issues, in my relationships, with my marriage, created financial problems. It just almost destroyed me. And God finally whacked me upside the head and said, "Hey, I'm here. You got to take me to work too. You can't just check me here and there." And so, it really became a focus for me. And what I learned was that people respect that. It's not that you walk around with the Bible and whack people upside the head and say, "This is what you have to believe." It's just living authentically and transparently. And faith is core to who we are as people. So, that's really kind of my philosophy today, is that, you don't separate faith from work. You're transparent and authentic about it. And, if people are interested in having a conversation, you can do that. If not, you respect that, but you still live your life based on the faith that you have. And for me, that's been a real important part of kind of my ability to stay focused and centered every day.
And tell us about your email.
Sure.
Thoughts from the farm.
Part of that journey was really the realization that I had to spend time in the Bible. I had to spend time with God, really building that relationship. It is all about relationships, and it's that way with our faith as well. And so part of what I decided to do was to study Scripture and to write each time I did about what I was learning. And I was leading some small groups at our church at the time, and several of the people said, "Hey, can you just send me what you're learning, and we'll do the same." And so I started to write an email, um, and it was a little hit or miss for the first few years, and finally one of the guys in the group said, you talk about being committed to your faith, but yet you only make time for God, 3 or 4 times a week, it seems. If you're really serious, you got to do this all the time, every day. And, that challenge really hit me. And, I agreed that was the case. And so uh, back in 2008, I really made a commitment to myself and to God that I was gonna write daily, 6 days a week. And so since September of 2008, I've put out an email 6 days a week. I haven't missed one day in the last 17 years. And it's changed my life completely. Just the discipline of writing daily, has got tons of value. When you send it out to people, it kind of puts the pressure on to make sure you're performing. And so I've been doing that. And I tell people, anybody that reads all the stuff I write, they got a problem. There's something wrong, because there's way too much information for people to read every day. But what I find is that God taps people on the shoulders and causes them to go read a particular day, and that's what really keeps me going. Is I'll get an email from a reader or two, and they'll tell me, this was exactly what I needed to hear today. I didn't know that, but God did, and somehow He connected us together through that daily email. And I've transitioned to the Saturday version to my daughter now, so it's
Oh, I
part of my
love
part
that.
of my legacy transition here.
And
So,
tell us the name of her column.
Thoughts from the Farmer's Daughter.
Is that wonderful?
Oh, I love it.
Americana to the nth degree.
Ah,
And
so
it's
fun.
wonderful, by the way. And Lori, who she wasn't a kid, but she was a young adult, I guess, when I first met her. And I mean, she has grown into this magnificent leader. And she writes her thoughts from the Farmer's Daughter. Oh my gosh, just wonderful column. And it's really all about it's mentorship, it's leadership, it's personal growth. So the father-daughter team are just doing a wonderful job. And so we do have the how to subscribe to it. So you see it in the chat. But also Arlen, being Arlen, he says, well, if you feel more comfortable, you can send him an email and he will subscribe you. So Arlen, how would you like people to reach out to you to subscribe?
Yeah, so I'm glad to have people reach out. It's Arlen, ARLIN, at Arlen Sorensen with an EN.com. So Arlen, ARLIN, at ARLINSORENSEN.com. And the SEN, that's Danish. So
That's Danish, yeah.
don't put the SO in on there. That really offends the Danes a little bit. That's the Swedish way to spell it.
I read that in your
Love
newsletter too. I did not realize that until I read that. But yeah.
Love it.
And I have one more question I want to ask you. But Jeff and Kim, I just want to open up to you too. If you have anything you want to ask Arlen before.
No, I don't have a question, but Arlen, I admire what you just said more than you could possibly imagine. That it seems the greatest leaders that I've ever worked for, that was who they were. My first sales manager in sales, literally, it was how he lived his life, and he didn't have to do anything other than live his life, and we all knew, and it helped my faith as well. So I commend you for that, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was prompted to put 2 minutes with God in my gratitude journal, to encourage people daily to at least start the process. But you have inspired me to maybe write daily. So we'll see where that goes. But I cannot wait to subscribe. Of course, I've worked with my father and parents for 15 years, and so I love that your daughter is also having the legacy. What a blessing!
Well, she's far better. She's far better than I am at writing. There's no question about that. So it's in good hands.
Let's end though with legacy, because that is a big part of you, Arlen. Because really, what you do, not only are you leaving a legacy, which you are, but you're really teaching all of us how to leave a legacy. So there's not just obviously one thing or one piece of advice, but when someone comes up to you at one of your peer group events or wherever you happen to be, and they say, well, how do you go about the process of even beginning to think about legacy, Arlen? What do you tell them?
Yeah, so legacy really is the foundational part of planning. That if we don't know what the end in mind is, we're trying to create, we can't create a roadmap to get there. So that's certainly a big part of getting started. Is sit down and really think about what it is you want to accomplish with your life and with your business. We teach that you have a personal legacy, but you also have a business legacy. And you need to think about both of those and plan for those. I think the biggest misconception about legacy for many is that they think legacy happens when you die. And the reality is legacy is created while we live. And it's all about how we use our time, talent, and treasure while we're walking this earth that will determine the legacy that we'll leave behind, into the future. And the other part of legacy, I think that some people haven't slowed down enough to think about is that legacy is not something that ends with death. Generational legacy gets created and carried forward from there. And the whole concept of managing from the grave is something that we try to teach. You can create legacy that will last for generations just by having a plan and executing that plan. It won't happen though if you don't have a plan. And that's why planning is so key to what we try to teach through our peer groups. If you want to have a lasting legacy, it starts with having a great life plan. So how you're going to live that life that's going to impact people for generations into the future. So
Wow.
it's a powerful thing for us to think about, and we can all do that if we just put the effort into really sitting down and working through it with our families and having that plan in place.
Wow, Arlen Sorensen, thank you so very much for being with us. Make sure to check out everything Arlen Sorensen, and we put lots and lots and lots of links in there many times, so you've got them right there. And if you have any questions or there's anything you've missed, feel welcome to email me, bob@berg.com. I've got the links, and I will make sure, because he is a man you want to be connected with, and you want to have him as a mentor, even if he's one of these people we call distant mentors, because you can learn so much from him. And make sure to of course subscribe to Thoughts from the Farm. Arlen, again, can't thank you enough. You are just you are a treasure. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, Bob. Sorry for the technical stuff up front, but glad we got through it.
Absolutely. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Jeff and Kim, what do you think? Did I undersell Arlen Sorensen, or did everything I say about him, was that true?
Oh, everything that you said was true, and then some. And it's one of my favorite things about this show is how we get to meet some of the the most interesting and great people. And oh man, Arlen, the time with you today made my day. So
it was a wow, which I say is without words. It was fabulous. So I'm grateful to be learning more about Arlen and that amazing legacy.
Yeah. Well, big thanks as always to our show producer, Joseph Lewin, founder of Sell Through Social. Joseph helps speakers and coaches grow their influence through live shows on LinkedIn and YouTube. A live show is an easy way to start a conversation with the people you want to know. Joseph's team also assists clients in growing their YouTube and LinkedIn through video-based content services. We've been working together for a while now, and he's fantastic. He's responsive. He's knowledgeable, always wanting to learn more. So Joseph, you're back there. Make sure to put your Selling Through Social URL on there. You can connect with him on LinkedIn as well. Well, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much again to Arlen Sorensen for such fantastic wisdom, as well as my great friends Jeff West and Kim Angeli. And thank you for joining us. We will see you next time on Bob and Friends.